Hey guys, today I want to show you a cool website that you should totally know about, and I think it's gonna be really helpful for many people out there. So not long ago, I was out with a friend for a photo shoot, and we were in this small town in that little street, you know, those kind of street where they have small restaurants and cute cafes, and there's always this one shop where they sell dragons with crystal balls and skulls and steampunk items that I like. Anyway, it was a perfect setup for a photo shoot. And after we had the blast taking photographs, we went on in this small cafe. And while we were waiting for a drink, because I love coffee and actually have one right here next to me. So while we were waiting, I showed her some of the photos on my camera and she was like, oh, I really like this one. Can I have this one for my Instagram account straight away? And well, I don't want to give her an edited photograph and I don't want any of my photos to have Instagram filters on them. And so luckily she brought her laptop with her, but the only photo editing software she has, if you even call it that, is Paint. So I remembered my husband mentioned before this website that he uses sometimes when he had to do a flyer. It's called photopea.com. Photopea is an online editing application and it looks just like Photoshop and Affinity Photo, which I uses. It's developed by Ivan Kutskir and he's been developing this since 2012, but just a disclaimer out there, this is not sponsored by Photopea. I'm just genuinely impressed by this website and I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why. So this is photopea.com and it's a free online editing application, but you can pay a small fee to remove the ads. In my past experience with online editing applications like this one, they normally can open JPEGs or PNGs. So the first thing I love about photopea.com is that it can open a RAW file. So why is editing in RAW important? So basically, RAW image contains more dynamic range. So for example, you can recover more in highlights and shadows compared to a JPEG file. So now I'm gonna open a RAW file and I'm gonna use this one right here. This was taken during our preview for Samyang AF 135mm f1.8, and after you open it, it goes to this window right here where you can do very basic editing like fixing the temperature. So for example, this one I want it a little bit more warm, let's say, and up the exposure a little bit and lower the contrast. There we go. And open! It's very simple as you can see, but you can already build a good foundation. The second thing I like about Photopea is that it contains all the tools you need for editing. So on the right side of your screen, you can already see all the tools you can use. For example, like HSL, levels, curves, gradient map, and on the top left corner, there's the filter. You can use liquify and blur, like Gaussian blur, which you can use for frequency separation, which I'm gonna show to you later on how to do manually. So with this photo sample I have right here, I'm gonna do a very basic photo editing. So I'm gonna use gradient map, dodge and burn, and levels, only those 3. So first I'm going to use gradient map to color grade our photo. I'm going to use a brown color on this one. It's a little bit brown. Press OK, and on this white bit we will do a blue tint. It's a little bit blue. Press OK, OK, and then change the blending mode to soft light. So there you go. And because I don't want her eyes to have that warm color, I'm going to remove that using a brush in black color. There we go. And probably remove some on her skin because she looks way too warm, so we're just gonna remove some of that. The second one would be dodge and burn. So how I do my dodge and burn is I make a new layer and then fill that up with 50% gray. So there's the paint bucket tool and I'm gonna use 50% gray, it's this one. Press OK and then fill the entire photo. And then change the blending mode to overlay and you can start doing your dodge and burn. So when I'm using dodge and burn, I only dodge the parts that already has lights on them, okay? But you have to be very careful with this. So you should only set your exposure to very low setting. Like for this one, I'm just gonna use 10%. And you're gonna change that one to highlight. So as I've said, I only dodge those parts that already has light in them. So we're gonna zoom it in. And by the way, the shortcuts of this website is the same as in Photoshop and Affinity Photo. So to zoom in, you can just press Alt and use your, well, I'm using a trackball to zoom, and you can use Ctrl Z, Ctrl C, Ctrl B for brush. So basically the same shortcuts. So when you're editing a portrait, where you want the viewers to look, you have to make sure that those parts are brightened. So normally I would use dodge and burns only on the parts where I want the viewers to look at my photo. So for example, I would only use this one on her face, so this area right here, and a little bit on her hand. I'm not gonna go so much in small details because that's gonna take a long time to do. So this is just gonna be a very quick edit. So for example, I want to also have more hairlight on her, and you can use that and that, and that's a bit too much. So I've said be very careful. So now I'm gonna use the burn tool. So much like the dodge, in dodge I only dodge the parts where there's already light in them, and in burn I only burn the parts that already has shadows. So we are just going to pop those out even further. And also you have to change that to shadows because that's the only thing we're gonna dodge, and change it to 10 because we don't want it to be too much. Zoom in, and then dodge it. For example, we're gonna dodge a little bit on her cheek. So you can have like cheekbone, but not that much, so just a little bit. And her lips. Normally it takes me a while to do dodge and burn, but for this video I'm just gonna do a very quick edit. And by the way, I noticed that the gradient map have also changed the color of her clothes, so we are going to get that back to normal and brush it off with black. It's a little bit, because this is supposed to be blue. Now you can see the real colors coming out. Now that's done, and the third thing I'm gonna use is levels, and there are two things I use levels for. The first one is to make the photo more crisp, and the second is removing some areas in my photographs where I don't want to catch too much attention. Now the first thing is we're gonna make the photo more crisp. I'm gonna use it like this, basically not that much. You can see there's already some changes. I'm gonna invert that. That's Control I, and we are only gonna apply those to the areas where we want it. So the next thing I'm gonna use levels for is to soften some areas of my photograph so that they don't catch too much attention. So let me open levels, and then it's this bottom right here. So you can see what's happening, right? It's like making a photo a little foggy. And since this is an online editing application, it can sometimes be slow, which is understandable. You're editing using your browser. I'm gonna close that, and we are gonna again invert it, Control I, and apply it only to the areas where we want them to be. So for example, the stairs here, because this is a stairs, I don't want the stairs to catch too much attention. Maybe here on top of her head, because there's like a contrast there, which I don't want, and I'm going to remove that. So this photo is now done. As you can see, I only used 3 tools, which is gradient map, levels, and a little dodge and burn. And you can do a really good editing using photopea.com, which is really impressive. So the next thing I'm gonna do is use frequency separation. Now, frequency separation is a good way to edit skin without losing details. And because I use Affinity Photo in there, there's only like one click button for me to have frequency separation, but I'm gonna show you how to do frequency separation manually. So I'm gonna use this photo right here. This is Abby during a photo shoot for the Samyang 135mm f1.8. So I'm gonna zoom it in a little bit. I'm gonna make 2 layers, right? 1, 2, 3, that's Control J. Oh, actually, yeah, it's 2 layers. Layer 1 and another layer. So the bottom one, I'm gonna name it, I would just say low frequency. I'm just gonna put low F, and this one high. And we're gonna remove that, click that little eye right there so it doesn't show. First, we're gonna edit the low frequency, and we are just going to use Gaussian blur. And how do you know how much Gaussian blur you need? Basically, as long as you remove some of the blemishes. like they're not that visible anymore. So not too much, but just a little bit. And on the high, we'll press the I again. And then we are going to click image, apply image, and we are going to do the layer to low F, and then do that blend mode to subtract. And we are going to do the scale number 2. And on the blending mode, we are going to use linear lights. So you see that it looks just like how it was. And how you do frequency separation is you go on the F and you press L for your lasso. So the mistake I did before using frequency separation is I would choose a big patch of skin and use it there, and it looks really bad. So I learned that you should only use in small patches because not the entire skin needs frequency separation. Just this part right here, and then blur that. Gaussian blur it. Just as much. You can see there's some changes that's happening. So just a really tad bit. You Control D to remove your selection. So that's pretty much done. Let's see how it looked from before. Gonna group this one. So without frequency separation, with frequency separation. So you can see Photopea.com can do frequency separation without problem. So the third thing I'm gonna do is changing backgrounds like sky overlay. And let's see how it will perform on that. So I'm gonna use this photo right here, which I've taken during my review for the Samyang 50mm f1.4. I'm gonna change the sky because you can see it's just very plain. It was overcast and there are no clouds. So we're gonna add some clouds and textures on this. And to do that, we will have to do a selection. So whenever you click quick selection, it does this image analysis before you can use it. Anyway, I feel like that's about it, what I need. This takes a little while to do refine edges. One thing I like about this is that there's 2 separate photos and you can see what you're doing on the right side. So if I select this one, for example, it shows on the right side what's happening. And I like that so much. I wish Affinity Photo has this because it will make things easier. But as I've said, this is an online application, so it's a little bit slow during this process. You can see I've selected it. That's the one I've selected. On the side is not perfect, but I'm just showing it really quick. And I have the sky right here. I'm gonna copy this to that layer. Actually going to probably enlarge it more to cover the entire sky. I'm gonna lower the opacity a little bit. I don't need it so strong. The only drawback it's because it's an online application. It takes really slow. Now our sky overlay is finished, but I didn't record the entire process because it was loading so slow, but apart from that, it did the job. So this is how it looks with the sky overlay and without. With and without. It's not perfect, but it's okay. The third thing I like about Photopea is that you have so many options in saving your file. So for example, when you go to file, you can see here, just save, or you can do save as PSD or PSD to storage. You can also export it as JPEG, and if you go to more, you can export it as TIFF, which how I save my images all the time. And also when you save in TIFF, it also saves it in its original size. I think Photopea.com is really helpful if you've been in a situation like I did where I had no choice but to go online and edit my photo there. This is also good for beginners, especially if you don't want to invest on a photo editing software just yet and you just want to practice and see the tools and what they do, because basically the tools on Photopea.com are the exact same tools you'll encounter on Photoshop or Affinity Photo. If you know other websites just like Photopea.com, leave it on the comments below. Maybe I can check it out, and also it might help another person. Also, if you have any suggestions that you want me to do next on my video, just leave it on the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe on our channel, and I'll see you guys on my next one. Goodbye now.